Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. And on today's show, we are asking the question, is running good for BJJ? Now, I actually get this question a lot, Joey. People on lockdown, they can't do jiu-jitsu, or people are just like, they want to improve their fitness and they say, oh, I've started running. I want to increase my gas tank because I want to roll longer on the mats. And they can't get to the gym more, so they think going for a run outside of that is helping them. And we're gonna break that down.
Yeah, running's one of those things. We talk about it with body weight strength, like push-ups and squats, lunges. It's one of those things where I think most people think that it's kind of inherently part of them.
Yes.
Like, oh, I can do it. Anyone can do it. You just go for a run.
Yeah.
And it kind of is. Anyone can do it. But when you view it in that way, you tend not to respect that there is a technique and there is a level of skill that's required to do these things. And I mean, we're always banging on about how shit everyone is at push-ups and
True.
You know, like you watch the standard jiu-jitsu warm-up and there's push-ups and stuff and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? So running really falls into that category for me.
Yeah, and I think for any of you who've been out there, if you go to your local park or if you've got a botanical gardens or a typical place where runners go, you know, you see people cutting laps. There is a very wide variation in technique between people.
Yes.
You know, you can get some very sloppy technique and then you see people who are clearly marathon runners or whatever, and they're very efficient and they're very tight and they're very good at what they do. And then you're seeing people just absolute shambolically just throwing themselves around, trying to move forward.
Yeah, like grinding it out.
Yeah, more lateral motion than forward motion.
Yeah.
And it's tough, right? And I say this as somebody who I would say is not built for running, but has spent a bit of time doing it.
Ah, man, with thin hips like yours? Surely.
What you talking about, son? I'm a sprinter, short burst specialist. But no, I think it's one of those things that like I have spent a fair bit of time running. My father was obsessed with running, kind of still is. But I got my mum's legs, not my dad's legs. Right. He's a shorter torso.
I got my mum's legs too.
He's a maybe people have alleged that we're brothers, but no, it's a funny thing that
I got your mum's legs.
Oh, the audacity, Joseph! You talk about my mother. Yeah. But it's that thing that he's got quite long legs, proportionate to his torso. And he has very good mechanics for running, apparently. I would say I don't. I'm a short leg dude, longer torso, which makes me good for wrestling, grappling, whatever, lower center of gravity, good for squats and stuff. But I think the beauty of running is it is simple. Chuck the shoes on, head out the door, do the thing. Whether you get that, because having spent a bit of time running, you get that state where you're not thinking about your problems. You're just out there, you're doing it. You sweat. You know, if you've got more energy, you run a bit harder. It's a bit easier. You feel a bit tired, you take it a bit easier. But you get the endorphins, you come home. Simple. But if you're anyone who's done this and you're like, oh yeah, I ran 5Ks, it's okay. Man, I might do 10Ks. Maybe I'll build up to a half marathon. You are going to get stiff and sore. There's a cost to this thing. So I think that's something that's probably not talked about enough, is that even though there's some good aspects to going for a jog, going for a run, it can take its toll on your body as well. Yeah.
I think that one of the tricky parts with something like running, and I think in an ideal world, everybody has a good chance at being a decent runner.
Sure.
I think back to, us being hunter-gatherers.
Yes.
And living off the land and, fighting and climbing, and running was an essential physical activity.
Yeah, you had to do it.
Yeah, whether you're chasing something or you're fleeing from something, as was climbing, as was, carrying things, as was like starting fires with your hands. Like there was just certain, that life was simpler. And so there was demands on our physicality that were just built into the environment. It's not just the case now that we are not physical enough and so that task is harder. it's that our bodies are now morphed into these shapes.
Yes.
Right? That sitting creates, tightens up the hip flexors, rounds our upper back, work on computers a lot. Like we've said in many other shows, you take that many steps further when you're a jiu-jitsu player because you strengthen these shapes. Your hip flexors get really tight. Your back becomes super rounded.
You're actively making these postures.
Yeah, that's right. Because you're like that. That's the position it serves us to be in when we're fighting jiu-jitsu or training jiu-jitsu. So the tricky part is okay, if you're a jiu-jitsu person and you want to go for a run, let's say you have the awareness and that sort of thing, and you're like, no, I'm going to try and do it well. Your body is, in a sense, disfigured for that activity.
That's true.
And what that does is it changes the way you run, and it means that, in simple terms, you run like shit.
Yeah.
And, you got to give credit to, like, there's people that are just pounding the pavement year on year and have been doing it their whole life and have very inefficient technique.
Sure.
It's like boxers or fighters. It's like, you got the technicians.
Yep.
You got like the real accuracy cats, and then you got the brawlers.
Yeah.
And which one's better? Like, there's brawlers that have been equally as successful as the technicians.
That's right.
So it's like, yeah, you can potentially get by as a person who runs all the time doing it inefficiently.
Yeah.
But I think what we're going to get at, and really our opinion, is that for the majority of people, and we're always talking about the majority because we're looking at the jiu-jitsu community that we work with.
We're talking to you.
We're talking to you guys. Thousands of conversations over the years.
Yeah, so many.
And it's like, well, for the majority of people, technique will be inefficient and they're going to pay a price for that.
Yes.
So that's the sort of frame here.
And this is the thing that we don't consider. We don't consider the bigger picture, guys. And we already consider the bigger picture because we see people earlier in their journey. We see young kids at our gym, at Alliance, we're talking like 20-year-old, like freshly minted blue belts, just frothing and just
Benny Brock.
Oh my goodness. And then we also see our older friends who are older than us, but still like, talk about Dave. Dave just got his blue belt and he's 50, right?
Ah, yeah.
So that's two very different blue belts.
Yeah.
Is Toby, like Tobias, is he going to go for a run? Probably not. He's probably going to go surfing or skate or some kind of cool kid type thing. That's what he does. Is Dave going to go for a run? Yeah, he might. He's got kids. Maybe that's all he can fit in.
Yeah.
So
a bit of a corporate life. So very cultural for those. Like, I'll get a run in at lunchtime.
Yeah, and that's more the thing. But the thing that we're not seeing is what are the long-term effects of that? Because oftentimes, if you've got good mechanics or something and it suits you and you do it, sure. But what I'm always thinking about for myself is like how sore my knees get, how tight are my hip flexors. Like, I'm probably too self-aware. Someone else who's not thinking about it's like, I don't care if I can squat ass to grass. Whereas me, I got to demonstrate that move every day. If I can't squat ass to grass, I'm not doing my freaking job. And the thing that I have found when I started running like higher volume, like over 10Ks, Achilles, hip flexors, the hamstrings, like the lower body tightness, I had to spend so much time trying to undo that. And, when I was just doing jiu-jitsu, doing my weightlifting, doing my flexibility training, I had enough wear and tear from the jiu-jitsu to deal with. You throw running on top of that, that's a whole nother load. So even though, yes, it might feel good in the moment, you're actually creating work for yourself by doing that on a regular basis. So if we compare running to nothing, sure, going for run's not bad. But even though it seems simple, it comes with a bigger price tag that you may not be aware of. Yeah.
And I think that any physical activity we're doing, and obviously we're talking to you guys, we're jiu-jitsu people, everything that we're doing is really, for the most part, we want it to complement our jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
So, this is not to take away from anyone who's listening who's like, yeah, but I just love fucking running. It's like, well, if you love it, do it.
Cool.
But if, like a lot of folks, and particularly ones that we talk to, you're looking for solutions to help you stay fit, build up your cardiovascular endurance, all of these physical attributes that are going to carry over to the mats. The way we see it is that, yeah, running is going to carry over in some way, but there's other activities you can do which are going to carry over in a much greater way.
Yes.
Like you're going to get a lot more return on investment for 45 minutes of this twice a week.
Yep.
When compared to like running or riding a bike or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And so this is where we go, okay, well, think about this, guys, because you might already be having these problems. So, for example, someone says, oh, man, I can't squat all the way down, or I can't do a Cossack because my heels come up off the ground. And that's a classic sign that your Achilles are really tight. You know, you haven't got the ankle mobility. In the same way, we get people squatting and their knees start to collapse and they can't pull their knees out.
The knees go in.
Yeah, they start to cave in, and that shows you that really glutes aren't firing up in the right way and that the hip flexors are probably a bit tight there, or adductors are a bit tight.
Yep.
Now, if you haven't been for a run for a while and you're like, oh, bloody lockdown, I'm just going to go for a run, and you just haven't done it, and you're like, God, this feels so good, I'm sweating. Oh, the next day or two, you're going to be getting some calf soreness, hamstring soreness.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like any activity, if you haven't done it for a while, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, it feels a bit harder to move. There's a phrase that I learned very early on in the PT career, which is, have you ever seen a Kenyan stretch? And this is no way a racial or xenophobic thing. This has got to do with Kenyans being some of the greatest runners of all time across the Olympic distance marathon, having produced more world record holders than any other nation. Those guys don't stretch, they just run. Because basically they're trying to turn their legs into springs. This thing called running efficiency, where you need a certain amount of tightness in your Achilles. You need a certain amount of tightness in your hip flexors, because you don't want them to move more than they need to, because you need to do, 40,000 repetitions fast. And that's the thing. Like, when you do jiu-jitsu, yes, you need to stretch. You totally do. If you're not working on your flexibility, you're probably going to get an injury, because the sheer demand is, jiu-jitsu is such a demanding lover. It wants flexibility. It wants power. It wants core strength. It wants endurance. It wants mental toughness. It wants grip strength. It's like, God, what don't you want, jiu-jitsu? It wants my soul. Yeah. So
it wants to fuck your ears up.
It does.
But and I guess, like, just to that point, there's a specific adaptation that the body's going through to make you an elite runner.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, that's a specific adaptation to that physical task. And as we know, if you train jiu-jitsu, there's specific physical adaptations that will make you better at jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Right? Being able to squash yourself in half, having nice mobile hips, but also strong.
Yep.
A bunch of different sort of things along those lines. Do you want to take up a sport and adopt the physical adaptations of that one when they are counter to what you need for the sport that you're actually interested in?
Yeah.
It was something that I think back to a lot. I read in a famous mobility book called Stretching Scientifically, if anyone's looking.
Yes, the original.
Thomas Kerr's, if anyone's looking for like the Bible of flexibility.
So good.
But he says that Russian weightlifters were forbidden, and this is back in I guess it's like 60s, 70s Soviet era. They had, basically the best Olympic team of all time for many years. But their weightlifters were forbidden from riding bikes.
Right.
Because they knew that it tightened up the hip flexors and tightened the ankles. And then that took range away from their weightlifting.
Yep.
So they're like, no bike riding.
Yeah.
And I imagine it would have been that they wouldn't have let them run either.
No.
So it's like, okay, they're obviously trying to make them as good as possible for weightlifting, because that's their sport. So, what we're getting at here is like, shit's going to happen to your body that when you run, that is really not going to complement your jiu-jitsu. Maybe we could look at what's it going to do. Maybe it's going to increase your gas tank a little bit.
Sure.
Maybe you get a bit of endurance out of it. Mm-hmm. But then the question is, well, are there activities that don't fuck up your mobility where you can still get the cardiovascular gains?
I would say definitely, Joe. What we've had recently, guys, because we have had to go back on lockdown most recently here in Sydney, Australia, and adapting our own training with our people. So obviously we can't be doing jiu-jitsu, unfortunately. So I have been running my BJJ team. Those who come along, we have a Zoom thing here at Jungle Brothers, which has been great, but also some park sessions. And so basically been running the home gym program from Bulletproof with them outside and doing and this is where I've been a bit meaner. This is where you come to know my dark side. As a trainer, I like to create adversity in my people's lives. And we all know jiu-jitsu can be hard. So you haven't got jiu-jitsu in your life, I'm going to have to mess it up. So usually we allow a bit more time for people to recover between different movements in the Bulletproof BJJ program. But I've been pushing people to go a little bit quicker to increase their heart rate. And we're combining, some very basic, fundamental body weight work with some mobility. And just by keeping people continuous, people are like, oh my God, I'm sweating. What is this? I didn't sign up for cardio. I thought it was, and just wilting, right? But that's so interesting because I'm not telling them to rush. I'm just telling them to stay moving and giving breaks for sips of water and all of that. And people are getting to the end of the workout being like, whew, man, I sweated up a storm. Like heart rate was up. And it's simply because they are working between movements which are challenging them, but challenging them to stabilize, challenging them to support their body weight, challenging them to stretch. And all these things are creating a degree of stress, which is driving their heart rate up. But it's not fucking up their biomechanics.
No, it's improving it.
That's right.
Getting stronger, getting more mobile.
Yeah.
Building more balance, more awareness.
And I think if you haven't experienced this, guys, like depending on your experience in the gym, and I'm not saying, you've got to bust out super hard circuits. When you do reduce how much rest you have between certain movements, you stay moving and your heart rate is naturally creeping up. And when you start to use your core musculature more, your body temperature goes up. You're like, whoa, better take this hoodie off. It's not so cold anymore. Oh my God, I need a towel. I'm sweating. I didn't bring a towel.
Winter here in Australia.
But I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, for yourself, Joe, it's winter here, right? Obviously, we're not suffering the far north winters of Canada type business. Shout out, all our friends in Toronto. It can get pretty cold there. But that thing is when we start to put moves together, like whether it be a Cossack squat, a pistol, a pull-up, a push-up, very, very basic things, but just doing them in succession, this drives the heart rate up. And we are actually getting fitter and stronger at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as you remove the rest, there's more cardiovascular demand, which, for people who are looking for a bit of that. And I think that, for us, we're really mostly interested in like the strength and the mobility adaptations, but that there's also a place for, hey guys, let's just do these 3 exercises and let's not rest. And particularly now you're training outdoors, it's winter, you need that because it's very easy for the body to get cold and people standing around resting. It's different to training in the middle of summer.
Sure.
You take a couple of minutes rest between sets, you're still warm.
True.
So moving a little bit quicker with the training is generally important during this time of year. That goes for Jiu-Jitsu Academy as well, right? Like your warm-ups at the beginning of class need to be more intense.
Yes.
Because people are coming in there, it's like they've been refrigerated.
Yeah.
So you need to bring their body up to a certain temperature so that they're like at a good operating temp. Then you can start to do the work. So I think that's great. I got no problem with like, say I've got someone who, and some of the guys that I train in my small group,
well, you're out in the park this morning, right?
Yeah, we're out in the park this morning, and we just did so we're building a new program for Bulletproof that's going to be released soon.
Ooh. And
I've been running it with the guys, and it's basically for the most part 2 exercises. These 2 get 3 to 5 sets. These 2 3 to 5 sets. Yeah, and it's the movements are all chosen very deliberately, and I'll be honest, they're not. Some of the movements are tough, but some of them are more mobility based, so they are. They're not sweaty exercises. They're hard in a different way. But, man, I'm training at 7:30 in the morning. I don't know how many degrees it is. It's pretty fucking cold.
It was 6 degrees this morning, Joe.
6 degrees. That's wild for us.
Yeah. As Australians.
That's some Arctic shit.
I know you guys in the far north hemisphere are like, these pussies.
Yeah, that's right.
6 degrees of bloody spring day over here.
But it's... Man, you get a couple of sets in and you're warm, because you're working. And if you bring awareness to those exercises and you try to do them well, right? So again, this awareness piece is like talking about not just banging out push-ups, but actually really trying to make your push-ups as effective and as efficient and like do them as well as you can.
Keep your midline tight.
Midline tight, elbows in, paying attention to your shoulder position. If you do all of your stuff with awareness, the exercises become quite taxing.
Much harder.
I've got some people who are like, hey, I want to build a bit of capacity, like a bit more of a gas tank for jits. What can I do? And normally for those people, I will say, do these like 2 or 3 exercises together, and then I'll add in some kind of higher intensity, like cardiovascular exercise. Could be burpee, right?
Yeah.
Could be like 10 or 15 burpees.
Yep.
Could be some box jumps. It could be a sprint.
Yep.
Like, hey, give me a 200-meter sprint.
Yeah.
But let's get 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And no rest.
Yeah.
And, you know, that moves towards something that's more of a kind of high-intensity interval training type realm.
Sure.
The beauty is you're still getting strength, you're still getting quality movement, you're getting mobility, you're getting all these things that help your mechanics to improve.
Yep.
Plus, you're building the gas tank.
Yep.
And you're not getting all those negative kind of adaptations, which are the tight ankles,
Yes.
the fucking knees grinding because you got bad running gait.
Yep.
You know, all that stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So we got plenty of people out there, many friends.
We've got lots of friends, guys.
Oh, so many
many friends.
Well, Joe has a lot, not me so much. But what I was going to say is jiu-jitsu people within the community who have bad ankles and have bad knees. And I'm definitely someone who has, over more recent years, fighting out of a gym that loves leg locks, you know, had a few ankle issues, had a few knee issues, which mean going for a run is just not really in the equation. I mean, walking up and down stairs has been challenging at times, to be honest. So it's like, all right, let's step back and go, okay, what if you wish you could go for a run, but you can't? And you just want to do something which is more endurance-based. You don't have any major equipment that you can use. Maybe you've got a kettlebell, or you've got something. You've got some bands.
Say you got nothing.
Say you got nothing.
Say you got nothing?
Yeah. Essentially, there is plenty of things you can do which are going to bring your heart rate up, which are not complicated. But the byproduct of that too is you're going to, as you build your work capacity, improve your strength endurance, you can also improve your mobility. And what do you know? You've got bang for your buck. You've got 3 things. You've gotten fitter, you've gotten stronger in a specific way, and you're actually more flexible. So that's what I'm always looking for, guys. If I've got limited time for a workout, I don't want to do a million exercises. I want to do 5, maybe 6 exercises, do them really well, and punch that bad boy and get it done. And I feel like if you are, whether you're in a warm climate or a cool climate, if it's something you can do in your living room, that's pretty convenient, right?
Great.
Push the coffee table back, push the couch back. Hopefully the dog doesn't come lick your face off when you're trying to do some hard work, which can often be the case. And then it's very easy for you guys to be able to do, and this is just a simple adaptation. I had this question from one of our guys, which was, oh, could we just do a Metcon? Could you just kill us with like endless reps? And I was like,
Is that Chloe?
It was Chloe. Yeah. She always says that.
She just wants something mindless.
Mindless, right?
Yeah, just give me something that I just don't have to think.
Yeah.
And you got to give, you know, I think that's one of the things. I won't cut you off. You continue on your line.
No, but I know exactly where you're going with that.
Yeah.
There is a value. Look, if you've got a kettlebell and you just want to breathe and sweat and don't think, do 100 swings.
Yeah.
Like, get a weight, do it, put the music on, put the TV show on, just do 100 swings. If you can't do 100 swings, do 20, short breath, do 20, and do multiple sets of that. And if you haven't got the endurance to keep up, that's all right. You can do body weight squats. But it's one of those things, it's like, as much as people love to turn exercise into sedatives, we actually want you to pay attention. You know?
Yeah.
It's mindful, right? We don't want you to tune out. We want you to tune into what your body is doing, because there is also a value in that. So continue with what you were going to say, Joe.
Yeah, there is something to be said for mindless exercise.
Sure.
You know, which is where running, I think, for a lot of people is kind of meditative.
Tune out.
Yeah, it's like I just go, I put a podcast on and off I go for 40 minutes or whatever. You know, we can understand how that is different from like, hey, here's 5 exercises.
Think about it.
Yeah,
count
you got to
reps.
think about the technique and you know all that stuff. And I guess you know maybe you can't replace that kind of mindless thing.
Sure.
But where it's really important is that if you choose to do something like that, you got to understand that there is a cost involved.
Yeah.
So, when you talk to people like us, where it's like, is that good for my jiu-jitsu? We're going to say, no, it's not.
No.
It's 100% not. There is way more effective things that you can do, which we're discussing. But if your question is instead, or is that good? Like, is that good for my mindset, or is that a good zone out?
Is that healthy?
So, well, yeah, totally. If that's what that is for you, then that's what it is. Maybe watching Netflix is too, or maybe reading a book or whatever.
Whatever it might be.
Going for a surf or something.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I know like when we train jiu-jitsu, that there's a lot of that in jiu-jitsu, isn't there?
Yeah.
Not with all roles. Some roles you got to be really way more engaged in drilling and stuff. But some people you roll with, you kind of zone out.
Yeah, and you're just cruising.
And I think that's a nice thing. It can be done with exercise.
Yes.
But I think that's a privilege that you have when you move well.
Yes.
If you've got good mechanics, then you can go and say throw yourself into like a CrossFit class,
sure,
or a Metcon, whatever, box jumps and burpees and push-ups and
sure, all those things.
Yeah, simple movements. Yeah, just bang it out. I don't have to think. But if you move like shit, that is not going to be a good choice for you either, because that lack of mindfulness will cost you.
That's right. And this is the thing that we don't fully understand, guys, and we are your cost estimators. There is a cost for everything you're going to do with your body. And we've done it. Between Joe and I, we've done so many different types of training and can speak from experience to go, yeah, you might want that thing, but here's the finer detail. This is where that's going to cost you later. So let's save you some time, guys. If you're out there in the world of BJJ and you're thinking about, I want to take up some running or do that, if it's just purely because you want to improve your endurance for jiu-jitsu, not because you love running or it's a big part of your life, I'm going to put it out there that there is a couple of other things you could do which will give you similar feels, but way more benefits. And that's where I would say, for those of you who don't really have any equipment and you're like, I'm at home, I'm in the park, what can I do? Our home gym workout
program.
The home gym program is very good for that. Even though there is some exercises with a kettlebell or a band that can be substituted out. And if you hit us up on the Facebook page, on the community page, or message us directly, we can give you substitutions so that you can do that full workout with no equipment.
Yeah, the home gym program, the foundation program, and also our foundation mobility program.
True.
There's like a handful of exercises in that entire program that do require like a pull-up bar or a pair of rings, but 95% of what's in there is just body weight with a piece of floor.
Yep.
And that is stuff that will push the needle on all of those beneficial aspects we've spoken about. Plus, if you take the rest periods out, you can turn into a bit of a cardio thing too.
I was killing them yesterday.
With the mobility?
Yeah. Like the thing is, guys, like the way we do mobility is hard and it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's very beneficial. You should not think that mobility is like the rest break. It's not the easy bit. It's the bit where you got to breathe and focus and work into it. And if you really do it, and this was actually some of the feedback I got last year in the lockdown, people were doing our dynamic and our more static stretching elements. And they're like, man, that's hard. I was working on that. And when you combine those elements of trying to improve your range with a degree of load and also getting stronger, guys, you will get fitter. It's just on you to be able to put them together and do that work.
What would you say for people who do want to run, who are like, I like running, and I, whatever, and I train jiu-jitsu, and I want to do it?
Sure.
What advice could we give to them? You got anything kind of?
Yeah, definitely. I would say my advice to you guys, and this applies to anyone who's trying to improve their endurance, which is to improve your work capacity. So that's not go for longer. Like that's the classic measure, right? Just run a bit longer.
Yeah.
Run a couple hundred more meters, run a few more minutes, a few more Ks. Not at all. Depending on your time constraints, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. Don't run longer, run faster. If you've got 20 minutes, like a lot of people are wearing wearables, whatever, tracking their distance, their steps, their heart rate. run faster. Like if you run faster, this will have way more carryover to you being stronger.
Yeah.
If people want to do intervals, another good thing too. You don't
I like intervals.
Yeah, I think running shorter and harder is much more appropriate. I'm going to speak to something real quickly. There's a gentleman, is it Ashley Wrigley? Anyway, he was a strength conditioning coach for rugby. And he talked about when there was a big change in the 90s for the Australian rugby team, the Kangaroos, when they went from doing a 10K run warm-up to doing 100-meter sprints.
Right.
Oh my God. He was like
100-meter sprints.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It's so savage, right? And obviously they're not running at 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, they're in footy boots and they're on an oval. But he said that it murdered them. And he's like, but this is what you guys do, right? You know, you never really run 100 meters at a go. You'd be lucky if that happens. Short sprints, but that's what you do. You're not just jogging along for 10Ks. That is not what you guys do from an energy system perspective. Same thing for jiu-jitsu guys. It's very rare that our efforts are anything longer than 10 minutes, right? Unless you're having that epic war, like when you don't know that the round time has stopped and you're both just fighting to the death. Neither of you wants to give up.
The rest of the room has stopped and everyone's just watching you.
Me and Joey trying to beat each other. I'm like, I can't let this guy beat me. He's not better than me. He's a brown belt. And then someone goes, hey guys, we're going to turn the lights off. You're like, oh God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Good training, man. Thanks. Interval training is big. And I think, intervals is a much more efficient way to go about it. What I really like when you choose to do shorter distances is that, at a faster speed, is you can also focus on your technique more.
Yeah.
From a technique perspective, we don't need to go right into right now, but I can say if your heel is striking the ground first, you're fucking it up.
100%.
So, and if that is you, go get some coaching. Go find a good running coach that understands barefoot mechanics and get them to like pay them for an hour and say, teach me the main concepts behind running well.
And even try this, guys, as a test for yourself. Take your shoes off.
100%.
Do you run on your heel on the pavement when you have bare feet? No, you run on your toes. You run on the ball of your foot. This is how we're meant to run. Now, obviously, if you're living in an urban area and you don't necessarily have access to grass, it's a bit harder, but in most major cities, there'll be a park somewhere. Don't be afraid to take your shoes off, get your feet bare, and actually run on your forefoot on grass. It's actually fantastic for your feet, your lower leg mechanics, everything. And like Joe said, get some professional advice. We're not running coaches, we're not biomechanists, but we have both played with, obviously running in shoes and also running barefoot. Very different.
Yeah, look, and I mean, for me, actually, running's probably something I'm going to start to put a little bit of focus into later this year. Once my knee is at a point, I'm like, cool, I want to reintroduce running and direction changes and that whole thing. And I did a little bit of that last year, and I actually enjoyed getting back into that again.
Yeah.
Because there is a real skill behind it, and it is kind of, when you feel yourself running efficiently, it's rewarding. You're like, fuck, I'm moving here. It's not costing me a lot of energy, and I'm building a new skill. The other thing that I would say, if you are the kind of person that wants to go run, is stretch your lower body.
Yeah.
Stretch your hip flexors a lot, stretch your calves, your Achilles a lot, stretch the quads, like all of it, adductors, piriformis, glutes, like just keep all of that lower area supple, because if you don't, you will start to become a runner. And that's going to mean tight lower body. Yeah.
Don't do it, people. All right, man, I think that's a good place to jump off.
Cool. I just wanted to give a really quick shout out to the team from Art Suave BJJ Brisbane.
Yes, indeed.
They recently joined our Academy subscription, which is super sick. Their crew, Emanuela is the head coach.
Emanuela, she is indeed.
Right on. They just signed up for the Academy subscription. So every student that trains at that gym gets free access to the Bulletproof program, which is really awesome. The gym pays for it. What that means is that their students have less occurrence of injuries, stronger, more athletic, and they've got options for training at home. If there's lockdown, if they want to do some extra training outside of jiu-jitsu, if they're looking for warm-up or cool-down ideas, it's all there for them.
Yeah, and we're right here, guys. So when you are an Academy subscriber, let's say you're out there, you own or run an Academy and you're not sure what exercises to give your people, that's what we're here for. We're very accessible. You can access our community page on Facebook, Bulletproof for BJJ Community. We're bringing back the Facebook Lives on a Sunday, 4 p.m. on a Sunday.
Nice.
So you can tune in, have a live Q&A, and also we're going to speak on a topic which is relevant to all our people. And yeah, we're very approachable. Like you can send us messages. We'll get back to you. And even if you need some advice, you're not sure what equipment to get, we can help you with that as well.
Yeah,
So,
hit us up.
definitely.
Get us on the Instagram at Bulletproof for BJJ or on the webpage bulletproofforbjj.com.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, JT. See you guys.
See you guys.